Samuel Reeves steps onto the crystalline deck of Star Station Vale, his worn boots making a distinctly human sound against the shimmering surface. The towering Valori, with their translucent bodies that refract light like living prisms, regard him with faceted eyes that hide their thoughts. Station atmosphere calibrated to human tolerances in your assigned sectors, announces the automated system as a shimmer of discomfort passes through the gathering of station personnel. The adjustment is clearly an inconvenience. Sam straightens his uniform, conscious of how dull the standard issue grey appears next to the naturally iridescent forms of the Valori. The gravity feels slightly off, set to a compromise that satisfies neither species perfectly. Engineer Reeves, a melodic voice chimes. A Valori approaches, each movement causing light to dance through their crystalline form. "I am Administrative Officer Lixna. Your presence was unexpected." Sam extends a hand before remembering the briefing about Valori physical contact protocols. He quickly converts the gesture into a respectful nod. "Thank you for accommodating me. I'm honored to be the first human engineer selected for the exchange program." Lixna's facets shift in what Sam recognizes as the Valori equivalent of a diplomatic smile. All refraction, no warmth. "Your credentials were sufficient. However, Director Zixtal has assigned you to Maintenance Division rather than Structural Engineering." "Maintenance? But my specialization is in." The decision is finalized. Lixna interrupts, light pulsing through their form in what Sam's cultural training identified as dismissive patterns. Humans lack the precision necessary for critical systems. Your emotional decision-making processes are considered a potential liability near our hatcheries. Sam bites his tongue. First impressions matter, especially as humanity's representative. "I understand. I'm here to learn and contribute however I can." Lixna leads him through corridors that branch like crystal formations, each turn revealing engineering marvels that would revolutionize human construction. They pass a transparent wall that stops Sam in his tracks. Beyond the barrier lies a vast chamber filled with hovering crystal matrices, each containing a tiny developing form. The matrices pulse with gentle light, thousands of them, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. "The central hatchery," Lixna explains, noticing his fascination. 7 subsidiary hatcheries are located throughout the station. The future of our species gestates within these matrices, precisely calibrated to provide optimal developmental conditions. "They're beautiful," Sam whispers, placing a hand against the barrier. A nearby Valori custodian notices and vibrates with what Sam's cultural training suggests is disapproval. "They are not aesthetic objects, human. They are our continuation." Lixna guides him away. "Your quarters are in Sector 12, distant from all hatcheries. Your maintenance duties begin at first cycle tomorrow." Hours later, in his sparse quarters, Sam reviews the station's schematics on his tablet. His assignment list confirms his fears, calibrating waste reclamation units, repairing automated cleaning drones, adjusting atmospheric filters. Tasks that could be performed by robots. He sighs, looking out his small viewport at the glittering expanse of Valori architecture. The crystalline spires and perfectly aligned structures reflect the light of unfamiliar stars. One step at a time, he tells himself, running a hand through his short hair. They'll see what humans can offer eventually. He doesn't know yet how soon, or at what cost, that opportunity will come. 3 weeks of unclogging filtration systems and recalibrating waste processors had left Sam with stained uniforms and wounded pride. The Valori maintenance supervisor, Tixnan, assigned him the least desirable tasks with crystalline efficiency. Tonight's assignment had him in a narrow maintenance duct running beneath Hatchery 7, replacing worn atmospheric regulators. Sam wiped sweat from his brow. The temperature here was set to Valori comfort levels, several degrees cooler than human preference. "Final regulator, then I can get some sleep," he muttered, reaching for the component. That's when he felt it, a subtle vibration, so faint it was almost imperceptible. He froze, hand outstretched, focusing on the sensation. The vibration came in regular intervals, building to a peak before fading, only to begin again seconds later. Something ancient stirred in Sam's brain, a pattern recognition ability honed by thousands of generations of human evolution. His ancestors had detected predators through subtle environmental changes. Now those same neural pathways fired warning signals. He pressed his palm flat against the station's structural support, closing his eyes to better concentrate on the vibration. The rhythm reminded him of something, a disaster simulation from engineering school. No, something he'd witnessed firsthand. "The Ganju Bridge," he whispered, eyes snapping open. He'd been part of the assessment team after the catastrophic collapse. These vibrations carried the same harmonic signature that had preceded the bridge failure, resonance building until the structure shattered. Sam completed his assigned task quickly, then followed the vibration to its source. The pattern grew stronger near the cooling system junction that serviced Hatchery 7. He checked his tablet for the station schematics, finding the cooling system's design. "Cyclic cooling pulses creating harmonic feedback," he murmured, understanding dawning. "And the frequency matches." The next morning, Sam stood before Supervisor Tixnan, explaining his discovery with careful precision. The cooling system is generating a harmonic resonance pattern. The frequency precisely matches the crystalline structure of the hatchery matrices. Tixnan's facets shifted in what Sam had learned was skepticism. "Our sensors detect no such anomaly." With respect, the vibration might be at a frequency Valori instrumentation isn't calibrated to detect. Human touch can sometimes. "Human senses are notoriously unreliable," Tixnan interrupted. "Your species evolved as prey animals with nervous systems designed to overreact to imagined threats." Sam controlled his frustration. "Could we at least run a specialized scan?" "Resources cannot be allocated based on human hunches," Tixnan concluded, dismissing him with a light flicker. That evening, Sam sat in his quarters, staring at the components spread across his small desk. He'd borrowed discarded parts from the recycling depot, motion sensors, crystalline resonators, and a damaged tablet. Technically against regulations, but he couldn't ignore the danger he'd sensed. By morning, he'd constructed a crude but functional seismograph calibrated to detect the specific frequency range he felt. He concealed the device in his maintenance kit and returned to the ducts beneath Hatchery 7. Hours later, Sam stared at the results displayed on his jury-rigged detector, heart pounding. The evidence was undeniable. A precise harmonic pattern building in intensity with each cooling cycle, creating resonance in the exact frequency that would shatter crystalline structures. His calculator estimated catastrophic failure within 11 cooling cycles, less than 48 hours. On the screen, a simulation showed what would happen when the resonance peaked. 10,000 crystal matrices shattering simultaneously, each containing a developing Valori child. "They need to see this," Sam whispered, hands trembling as he saved the data. He didn't yet understand that his discovery would change his life, and 2 species forever. "These readings cannot be accurate," Administrative Officer Lixna stated, facets shifting in dismissal as Sam's data scrolled across the conference room display. Sam stood before the Valerie Technical Council, 5 crystalline beings whose combined engineering experience spanned centuries. He'd spent hours preparing his presentation, ensuring every calculation was flawless. "The resonance pattern is clear," Sam insisted, pointing to the waveform analysis. "Each cooling cycle increases the harmonic buildup. The frequency precisely matches the resonant frequency of the hatchery matrices." Chief Engineer Tixia rose from her crystalline seat, light refracting through her form in patterns Sam recognized as skepticism mixed with condescension. "This data comes from unauthorized equipment built from discarded components," Tixia observed. "Station protocols require certified instruments for all technical assessments." Sam nodded, anticipating this objection. "I understand, but the standard sensors aren't calibrated to detect these specific frequencies. That's why no one noticed before." "Convenient," murmured Director Zixto from the head of the table, his ancient crystalline form-shifting colors that suggested deep suspicion. "The human detects what our advanced systems cannot." Sam displayed his final simulation. "At current build-up rates, the next major cooling cycle will create a harmonic wave that will shatter the matrices in Hatchery 7. The display showed thousands of crystal structures vibrating until they fractured simultaneously. That's in 12 hours. Silence fell across the room. Sam felt a momentary surge of hope. Surely they couldn't ignore this. Director Zixtal rose, light pulsing through his form in formal patterns. "The cooling systems were designed by our most accomplished engineers and have functioned flawlessly for 73 cycles. We cannot postpone a critical station function based on improvised instruments and human intuition." "But the children," Sam began. "This council's decision is final," Zixtal interrupted. "Request denied. Return to your assigned duties, Engineer Reeves." Sam's hands clenched at his sides as he gathered his materials. 10,000 lives at stake, and they wouldn't even investigate. He understood their perspective. To them, he was an emotional creature whose senses couldn't be trusted. But understanding didn't make it easier to accept. In the corridor outside, Sam leaned against the wall, mind racing through options. He could escalate to Earth Embassy officials, but bureaucratic channels would take days. He could attempt another detection method, but that too would take time they didn't have. "Your data patterns are consistent." Sam turned to find a slender Valerie standing nearby. Unlike most, her crystalline form contained hints of azure rather than pure diamond clarity. He recognized her from orientation. Ixlara, a junior hatchery systems engineer. "You believe me?" Sam asked, surprised. "I analyzed your detection methodology while you presented," Ixlara replied, her facets shifting in what Sam interpreted as cautious interest. "The harmonic frequency you identified would indeed be destructive to our matrices." Hope sparked in Sam's chest. "Can you help me convince the council?" "Their decision is made," Ixlara stated. "Director Zixtal has particular resistance to human perspectives." Sam straightened, determination replacing disappointment. "Then we need another approach. The cooling cycle begins in 12 hours. What if we manually recalibrated the system to eliminate the harmonic pattern?" Ixlara's form flashed with alarm. "That would require access to the primary cooling chamber. Security protocols can be bypassed," Sam finished. "Look, I know what I'm suggesting breaks rules, maybe laws. But thousands of children will die if we do nothing." Ixlara studied him, crystalline facets refracting with calculation. "Why would you risk punishment for Valerie Young? They are not your species." Sam thought of Earth, of the universal drive to protect children that transcended cultural differences. Because they're children, he said simply. Wouldn't your people do the same for human kids? After a long moment, Ixalara's form shifted to a deeper blue. Commitment. What do you need from me? Sam hunched over the holographic station schematics in Ixalara's private quarters, the blue light illuminating his tired face. Outside, the station's normal activities continued, no one aware of the danger building with each passing hour. The primary cooling regulators can only be accessed from inside the chamber, Sam said, pointing to a maintenance shaft that descended into the station's core. We need to manually adjust these 3 harmonic dampeners to prevent resonance buildup. Ixalara's crystalline form dimmed slightly, the Valori equivalent of a concerned frown. The chamber contains high levels of radiation when active. Our systems are designed for remote calibration precisely because of this danger. How high? Sam asked, already suspecting the answer. Ixalara projected the specifications onto the schematics. The numbers made Sam's stomach tighten. This would shatter a Valorie's crystalline structure within minutes, Ixalara stated. Our bodies cannot withstand such energy patterns. Sam nodded slowly. Human physiology handles radiation differently. Not well, but better than your people. I'd have about 15 minutes before reaching dangerous exposure levels. Dangerous. Ixalara's facets shifted in rapid patterns of concern. You mean fatal? Not immediately, Sam clarified, though the distinction offered little comfort. Severe radiation sickness, certainly. Long-term effects. He left the sentence unfinished. Ixalara studied him, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of confusion. Why would you consider such risk for children not your own, of a species not your kind? Your assignment here is temporary. You could simply report your concerns to your Earth superiors and request transfer. Sam thought of the mattresses he'd seen, each containing a developing life. He thought of Earth's children, how humans instinctively protected the young regardless of circumstance. Because they deserve a chance to live, he answered simply. Would your people do less for human children? Ixalara was silent for a long moment, her form shifting through subtle color variations Sam couldn't interpret. Finally, she projected a new schematic. Station security changes rotation at exactly 2:30. I can create a systems diagnostic in section 12 that will draw attention. That gives you approximately 8 minutes to access the maintenance shaft before security protocols engage. They spent the next hours preparing. Sam modified his maintenance tools for the delicate adjustments needed. Ixalara programmed a diagnostic sequence that would create the distraction without causing actual damage. Neither spoke the word criminal, though they both knew the severity of regulations they were breaking. The calibrations must be precise, Ixalara emphasized, transferring the calculations to Sam's tablet. 2 degrees variance in either direction would create new harmonic patterns, potentially more dangerous than the current ones. Sam nodded, memorizing the sequences. What about the radiation protection? Standard maintenance shields provide minimal protection, Ixalara replied, retrieving a thin silver vest from her storage unit. This shield was designed for emergency inspections. It will extend your safe exposure time by perhaps 7 minutes. Sam checked his watch. 3 hours remained before the cooling cycle. He tried not to calculate his survival odds. If we're caught, he began. I will be crystalline fractured, excluded from my genetic line, Ixalara stated matter-of-factly. You would likely be immediately deported and banned from all Valori territories. Sam absorbed this. And if we do nothing? Ixlara's form darkened to deep blue, the closest to human sadness he'd seen in a Valory. 10,000 children never complete formation. Sam slipped the thin radiation vest under his uniform. Then we have no choice at all. Ixlara extended her crystalline hand in an unprecedented gesture. After a moment's surprise, Sam gently clasped it, feeling the cool, smooth surface against his palm. "For the children," she said. "For the children," he agreed. The maintenance shaft loomed before Sam like the throat of some ancient beast. Distant alarms blared, Ixlara's distraction working as planned. He checked his watch, 2:33. 7 minutes until security protocols would seal every access point in this sector. Cutting access now, he whispered into his communicator, using the laser tool to slice through the secondary panel locks. The metal hissed and gave way, revealing the rarely used emergency access tunnel. Security teams are responding to the diagnostic alert. Ixlara's voice came through, tense but controlled. Director Zixtal has been notified of system irregularities. Sam grimaced. Of course he has. He pulled himself into the maintenance shaft, the metal rungs of the ladder already cool against his palms. "I'm in," beginning descent. With each step downward, the ambient temperature dropped. By the 15th rung, his breath formed visible clouds. By the 30th, a blue glow emanated from below, making the air itself seem to shimmer. The radiation detector on his wrist began to click softly. Even at this distance, the readings exceeded normal safety parameters. Initial radiation detected, he reported, continuing his descent. Shield functioning normally. 8 minutes until the cooling cycle intensifies. Ixlara reminded him, "You must complete the calibrations before then." At the bottom of the shaft, Sam faced the massive cooling regulation chamber. Its core pulsed with swirling energy, beautiful and terrifying. The very air seemed charged, making the hairs on his arms stand despite the cold. His radiation detector no longer clicked, but emitted a continuous warning tone. The thin vest beneath his uniform offered scant comfort against what his body was absorbing. Sam connected his calibration device to the main console with trembling fingers. The screen illuminated with scrolling data, confirming what he predicted, harmonic resonance building toward catastrophic levels. Beginning calibration sequence, he reported, inputting the first set of adjustments. His vision blurred momentarily, forcing him to blink hard to refocus. First dampener recalibrated, he announced as the console flashed confirmation. 2 more to go. His skin began to prickle uncomfortably, and a metallic taste filled his mouth. Early signs of radiation exposure his training had warned about. The second calibration required even more precision. Sam's hands shook visibly now, whether from cold, radiation, or fear, he couldn't tell. The sequence complete, he moved to the final console. "Sam," Ixlara's voice came urgently through the communicator. "Security has discovered my diversion. They're tracking the source of the unauthorized access." "Almost done," Sam managed, his voice hoarse. The final calibration sequence was the most complex, requiring perfectly timed adjustments to multiple systems simultaneously. As he completed the sequence, the chamber's energy pattern visibly shifted. The swirling core changed from angry purple-blue to a more stable azure glow. His instruments confirmed, resonance patterns normalizing, harmonic build-up dissipating. "It's done," he whispered, relief washing through him momentarily before a wave of nausea struck. He tried to stand, but found his legs unresponsive, a numbness spreading through his extremities. The radiation detector screamed its warning, exposure levels far beyond what the shield could handle. Sam tried to move toward the ladder, but collapsed against the console instead. Through blurring vision, he saw the chamber door slide open. Armored Valory security poured in, crystalline forms protected by heavy shields, weapons raised. Behind them stood Director Zixtal, his multifaceted face registering something Sam never expected to see: shock. The resonance, Sam managed to say before darkness crowded his vision. Check the hatchery mattresses. His last conscious thought was of the children, safe in their crystal wombs, before radiation sickness claimed his consciousness and he slumped to the floor of the chamber he'd sacrificed himself to fix. Consciousness returned to Sam in waves of pain. Light seared through his closed eyelids, and every nerve ending screamed in protest. He tried to move, but found himself suspended in some kind of gel-filled chamber, its interior emitting a soft blue radiance that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Beyond the transparent shell, blurred figures moved. Sam blinked, forcing his vision to clear. The curved walls of what appeared to be the Valory Council chamber came into focus. Not a medical bay as he'd expected, but the grand ceremonial heart of the station. Hundreds of crystalline beings stood in concentric circles, their facets turned toward him. The regenerative gel in which he floated carried their voices to him, translated by some mechanism he didn't understand. Unprecedented breach of station protocols, a familiar voice was saying. Director Zixtal stood before the assembled council, his crystalline form rigid with formal authority. The human accessed restricted systems without authorization and modified critical station functions. Sam tried to speak, but the gel filled his mouth, somehow allowing him to breathe while preventing speech. A monitoring panel beside the chamber displayed his vital signs: elevated radiation levels in his blood, cell damage in progress, medical countermeasures active. The penalty for such actions is clear. Zixtal continued. Immediate removal from the station and permanent exclusion from all Valory territories. A ripple of light patterns, agreement, passed through the assembled council members. If I may address the council. Sam recognized Ixlara's voice immediately. She stepped forward, her azure-tinted form standing out among the pure crystalline council members. Security restraints encircled her limbs. She too was being judged. The human's actions prevented catastrophic failure in Hatchery 7, she stated, her voice clear and unafraid. Our instruments have confirmed what he discovered. Harmonic resonance was building in the cooling systems, at a frequency our sensors were not calibrated to detect. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Zixtal's form darkened slightly. Your complicity in this unauthorized action has been noted, Junior Engineer. I accept responsibility for my part, Ixlara continued. But the Council must know the truth. Scans of all cooling systems conducted after the human's intervention have revealed identical harmonic patterns building in every hatchery. Had he not acted, we would have lost not just one hatchery, but potentially all of them. The chamber erupted in light patterns of alarm and disbelief. Sam felt a surge of vindication through his pain. They were finally listening. A new figure approached the center of the chamber, taller than the others, her ancient crystalline form catching the light in patterns that reminded Sam of Earth's aurora borealis. The room immediately fell silent. I am Velzin, Chief Hatchery Guardian, she announced, her voice carrying natural authority that even Zixtal seemed to respect. I have personally verified these findings. The harmonic pattern now registers on our adjusted sensors. It appears in all 12 hatcheries across the station. She turned her multifaceted eyes directly towards Sam's suspension chamber. Were it not for this being's actions and his unique perception, we would have lost an entire generation. Zixtal's form shifted with what might have been discomfort. The human's intentions may have been admirable, Guardian, but methods matter. Station protocols exist too. To protect our young, Velzen interrupted, which is precisely what this human did, at great personal cost. She approached Sam's chamber, placing a crystalline hand against its surface. Our medical assessment indicates severe cellular damage from radiation exposure. He knowingly risked his life for Valori children. This requires us to reconsider not just this case, but our understanding of humans entirely. 3 days later, Sam sat upright for the first time since his radiation exposure. The Valori medical chamber had worked wonders, cellular repair well beyond Earth's medical capabilities, but his body still ached in ways he couldn't describe. The doctors explained he would recover, though certain lasting effects were inevitable. The council has been in continuous session, Ixlara explained, standing beside his recovery pod. Her restraints had been removed, the charges against her suspended pending final judgment. Nothing like this has happened in recorded Valori history. Sam managed a weak smile. First contact is always messy. They're studying your detection methods. She continued, her crystalline form vibrating with what Sam had learned to recognize as excitement. The pattern recognition capabilities of the human brain. It's unlike anything in our evolution. A soft chime announced a visitor. Chief Hatchery Guardian Velzen entered, her ancient form casting prismatic patterns across the medical bay walls. Engineer Reeves, she greeted informally. Your recovery progresses adequately. Yes, Guardian, Sam replied, attempting to sit straighter despite his weakness. I understand I have your medical team to thank for that. Indeed. She moved closer, studying him with multifaceted eyes. Our scientists have been analyzing your methodology for detecting the harmonic resonance. Most fascinating. Sam nodded. Human senses evolved differently than Valori. We're pattern hunters by nature. More than that, Velzen corrected. The Valori evolved to perceive absolute precision, individual data points with perfect clarity. But you perceived what we could not, the emergent pattern arising from the relationship between those points. She activated a holographic display showing brain scans, one crystalline and angular, the other organic and convoluted. Your species evolved from prey that became predators, she observed. Your neural architecture developed to detect anomalies in your environment, the slight movement of grass that might be wind or might be a predator, the faint sound that doesn't belong. You make intuitive leaps that our logical processes cannot. Director Zixtal entered, his form less rigid than Sam had ever seen it. The technical council has completed its analysis, he announced, addressing Velzen but glancing at Sam. The human's improvised detection equipment registered harmonic patterns that our most sophisticated sensors missed entirely. Sam couldn't hide his surprise at Zixtal's presence and apparent concession. We have calibrated new detection systems based on your methods, Zixtal continued, now speaking directly to Sam. All hatcheries are now protected against harmonic resonance. I'm glad, Sam said simply. There is more, Velzen added. Teams are now recalibrating all cooling systems. The same harmonic pattern existed throughout the station, imperceptible to us, yet potentially catastrophic. Zixtal's form shifted in what Sam recognized as the Valori equivalent of discomfort. I was incorrect in my assessment of your warning. The admission clearly didn't come easily. Your action, while unauthorized, saved many lives. The children of Hatchery 7 will know your name, Velzen stated. This is no small thing among our people. Sam felt an unexpected emotion swell in his chest. "I didn't do it for recognition." "No," Zixtal acknowledged, tilting his crystalline head. "You did it despite knowing we might punish you. This is the quality we find most illuminating about your species." "The Council's deliberations continue," Velzin explained. "But one matter has been decided. Junior Engineer Ixlara is cleared of all charges. Her decision to assist you is now recognized as correct, if unorthodox." Ixlara's form brightened with relief and gratitude. "As for you, Engineer Reeves," Velzin continued, "your situation is unprecedented. But I believe you will find our final decision satisfactory." 3 months later, fully recovered, except for a slight tremor in his left hand, Sam stood before the Valory Evolutionary Council in formal Earth diplomatic attire. The ancient chamber predated the station itself, its walls embedded with crystalline records dating back 50 millennia. Sam had never heard of this council before receiving their summons. Even Ixlara seemed awed when he mentioned it to her. "The Evolutionary Council oversees our species' future," she had explained, her form shifting with reverence. "They meet perhaps once in a generation." Now 7 ancient Valory regarded him from their crystalline dais, their forms so old they had developed facets and colours Sam had never seen in younger Valory. Velzin sat at the centre, her position marking her as the Council's chair. "Samuel Reeves of Earth," she began formally, "your actions have been thoroughly examined by councils of security, medicine, engineering, and ethics. Your violation of our protocols remains a fact, yet so does the outcome, 10,000 lives preserved through your intervention." Sam stood straight, hands clasped behind his back. "I accept whatever judgment you deem appropriate, Guardian." "Judgment has been rendered," she replied, "but we have not summoned you for punishment. We have summoned you for opportunity." A crystalline pedestal rose from the chamber floor, holding what appeared to be a small container hewn from a single diamond. "For 50,000 years," Velzin continued, "the Valory have maintained the ancestral matrix, a genetic repository of beneficial traits from spacefaring species who demonstrate exceptional qualities. Throughout our history, only 17 species have contributed to this repository." Sam's breath caught as he began to understand. "Your pattern recognition abilities, risk assessment methodology, and capacity for altruistic protection of young not your own represent adaptive advantages our species lacks," Velzin explained. "We offer integration of these traits into our genetic future." The diamond container opened, revealing a space clearly meant to hold a biological sample. "If you consent," Velzin said, "selected attributes from your genetic code would be analyzed, isolated, and incorporated into the evolutionary options available to future generations of Valory. Your unique human perspective would become part of our people forever." Sam stood speechless, understanding the unprecedented honor being offered. He thought of Earth's diplomatic corps, how they would react to this development. "This is not a decision to make lightly," one of the elder council members cautioned. "Once integrated, these traits will reshape our evolution for all time." Sam squared his shoulders. "I consent with one condition." The council members shifted slightly, their facets catching the light in patterns of surprise. "Name it," Velzin said. "That this integration represents not just my contribution, but the beginning of genuine exchange between our species," Sam replied. "That humans and Valory work together to create technologies and societies that benefit from both our intuitive leaps and your logical precision." Velzin's ancient form seemed to shimmer with approval. "Accepted." The ceremony that followed changed everything. Across the galaxy, News spread of the first human trait sequence added to the revered Valory matrix. Scientific and cultural exchanges between species multiplied as other alien civilizations recognized what humanity might offer. 5 years later, Sam watched with wonder as the first integrated Valory children emerged from their matrices, their crystalline forms subtly different, capable of intuitive leaps, empathetic responses, and seeing patterns where none seemed to exist. When one small Valory child approached him with curiosity, rather than the typical reserve of her species, reaching out to touch his hand without hesitation, Sam knew he had received the greatest reward possible. Not honors or recognition, but the evolution of understanding between profoundly different minds.